Yeah, we just wanted to give you all a quick update, and don't worry about the words on the paper. I'll explain what the images mean here in a second. But we wanted to give you an update. We're going to be sending another community newsletter out sometime later this month, and what I'm going to talk about today will be in the newsletter for the for the whole of the community and the surrounding communities. But what we wanted to do is let you know where we are with very specific aspects of the derailment site cleanup. Talk a little bit about the creeks, where we are with the creek assessments, and then just some general site update information. This will only take a few minutes. So what you're looking at is the overview of the derailment site. So really the only thing important here are the colors and the little green and blue diamonds or triangles in those colors. The colors are the different phases of what we call the final confirmation sampling, which is a collection of over 5,000 samples, both at the surface and at depth beneath the surface, anywhere the terrain derailment construction cleanup operations had touched this community. The red areas indicate where there was actually hazardous material cleanup that occurred. So you'll see the ditches, the car scrapping areas, and the main line, the main train tracks themselves. The orange areas are areas, we call those Category 2 areas. They're areas where hazardous materials or other materials were stored or processed. For example, the water treatment operation, all the blue, small square blue containment tanks, the large 1 million gallon tanks, which are gone now. And then the yellow areas are areas where there were some operations going on. That's called Category 3, but there was never any hazardous material work going on in those locations. During our final confirmation sampling, as we talked about during our last briefing to you, if we came across any detections of the chemicals involved in the derailment or other chemicals that may be involved with the derailment, we compare them against groundwater protective standards in soil. So if the levels in soil exceed those very conservative standards, then we will take action or direct Norfolk Southern to take action to remove that material. In our last newsletter, you saw we directed the company to remove low-level vinyl chloride contamination from 4 areas, and those are the locations on the map that you can see spotlighted with blue triangles on the map there. You'll notice that all of these detections have not been found in areas that were previously cleaned up, which makes sense because the cleanup on those red areas were complete. But they were located in areas adjacent to those locations that did not have physical cleanup happen. So the vinyl chloride, low-level vinyl chloride cleanups, a couple hundred yards, right, Chris?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
About a couple hundred yards of soil was removed a couple months ago. The remaining locations are not vinyl chloride. So it's low-level chemicals. There's a few low-level benzene hits, some low-level 2-butoxyethanol, and some other chemicals, again, that may or may not be related to the derailment. Regardless, they're coming out. They will be handled as non-hazardous soils because, again, they're very low level. But again, they do exceed those groundwater protective thresholds for soil. That's why, again, we're taking a very conservative approach here and just removing it. There's one area on the east end. So if you're looking at the image on the east end here, close to the Pennsylvania state line, near the wetland areas, there are a couple detections that we have not fully delineated yet. Norfolk Southern is working to delineate those right now under our oversight. So in addition to the roughly a dozen locations that you can see on the map, there's going to be one other area that has to be addressed as well. And again, once it's fully delineated, then we'll provide that information in a newsletter as well, so the community can see exactly what's going on. Okay. So that's the derailment site itself. Other activities at the derailment site, as you can see if you're driving down Taggart Road, there's a lot of new grass growing on the south side of the road. So as these areas get completely restored and our analytical data tells us that they're clean to the standards that we've set, then those areas will be fully restored. And again, that's where you can see some of that new grass growing. It's a good time of the year to be doing that, so it's taken really well. In addition to that, there's some sheet pile removals. They're the large metal sheets that get pounded into the ground to help stabilize the tracks and the buildings in the area near the cleanup site. Those are in the process of being removed right now. Chris, about how much of that material is coming out?
Well, we've got different areas. So there's some portions where the sheet pile was installed to facilitate the excavation because we were trying to make sure we have structural stability so guys can work on there safely. A lot of it was installed adjacent to our railroad tracks. That material is going to stay in place to support the tracks. A lot of the sheet pile was stored around the containment for the big blue tanks that walled off the containment on the north side of the tracks, northeast of Pleasant. That's all coming out. So a lot of it's coming out. The portion that is along our tracks is going to stay in place but get trimmed off so normal train operations can go ahead. There are a couple small areas where it was right up against the building to maintain protection of that building, and even when it gets backfilled, they're going to stay in place because that just potential to cause more damage taking them out. There's no harm there. We've cleaned either side of them, so we know it's clean. Those areas will stay in place. But the majority of it, there's not long our track is coming out.
Track stability, you're good there?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you guys have been doing it for a long time, but you usually don't dig a giant pit where your tracks are, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the tracks usually do start out as a big hole. So we do this a long time, but to answer your question, no issue at all with the track stability at all.
Okay.
The sheet pile is fine whether it's there or not. The tracks are good. I mean, we restored the tracks and they were stable before we put that sheet pile in. So there's not a track stability issue. The tracks are, I mean, these are main lines. So they get a lot of attention. They're inspected several times a week. Whenever we were doing work out there, we had laser surveys set up to make sure, hey, is that track moving? If we're digging over here, I don't want that track to shift and cause a problem. So they continue to do that survey and evaluation and all the maintenance programs that we normally do. So track stability is not a problem.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the only other thing related to the derailment site itself, as these areas have been cleared by sample analytical, we have opened them up to free flow water to the ditches. The driver there is vinyl chloride. Any vinyl chloride, those areas do not get reopened. But now that we've confirmed in 90% of these areas that we are below those thresholds for vinyl chloride, water can free flow to the ditches, free flow to Sulphur Run. So that's the derailment site itself. Speaking of Sulphur Run, the creeks, Norfolk Southern is wrapping up the fall round of analytical sampling in the creeks themselves. I think Leslie Run has already been completed.
No, sulfur's done and the background sampling is done, and they're working on Leslie to do their additional sampling event here. That's going on right now.
Yeah.
When do you think we'll see final closure? No more cones, no more fence, no more people stopping us going 15 miles an hour.
Oh, so on Taggart Street. So that's going to come back to when we talked about really with the East End work.
Okay.
The stream work that we're doing doesn't really affect what we're seeing on traffic. The East End portion, we're in a directive to move that fast. So we've got to get that area delineated, defined, and then get materials that we identify out of there. Really hoping for the end of the year here.
Okay.
So that's one portion of it. But getting that out, then there's the other infrastructure that supports that. Treatment plant's gone, so that's less infrastructure. We don't have the water trucks doing that. That's less infrastructure. Once we get all that shrunken down, we won't have the truck traffic. We won't have vehicles going back and forth. So we've got to finish that delineation and that, management of the materials we identify, and then the infrastructure can follow that. So really open by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then again with the creeks, because we've been in near drought conditions, and some areas have been in drought conditions for the last several months, there's just not enough water in the creeks to do a proper, what we call a qualitative assessment, which is the sheen scoring. We can collect the samples, we can tell you what the chemical composition is, but we can't do the sheen assessment, which is one of the regulatory drivers for doing the creek cleanups. So until we get water, we're not going to do a sheen assessment. So that might happen in a month. Just depends on when we have water in the creeks. This won't be the last time the creeks are addressed. Regardless of what the outcome of the analytical work and the sheen assessment is, we'll still plan to do at least one more quarterly assessment to, again, provide a full picture of what the status of the creeks is. Leslie Run has cleaned up really nicely. But as we've talked about many times at these meetings, Sulphur Run, we've got that combination of contamination that was present before the derailment and contamination that was caused by the derailment. We need to figure out what that synergy is between legacy contamination and derailment-related contamination. We think we're close, but until we can give you a more definite answer, we're going to continue to work the creeks. Okay. So, other notes here. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. The federal consent decree, the lawsuit settlement with Norfolk Southern, that has now gone to the courts for the courts to review. So stay tuned on that. As we learn more through that process from the Department of Justice and the courts, we will update you. Weekly operational updates. Norfolk Southern continues to provide those on their website. So if you go to the Norfolk Southern website and you look under site progress, every Monday, Norfolk does update what's going on the derailment site itself. And then, as I said, we are working on another newsletter to share the information I just shared with you with the community and the surrounding communities. So, any questions for me? Yes.
You got a clean bill of health everywhere over at the park area?
Yes. All the sampling over at the park. We are seeing some common compounds, roadside polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which is very common we see on roadsides, by the bridge construction project, areas like that. But yes, we do not have any further excavation work or cleanup work to do with the park. So.
There's major excavation over there.
Oh well, yeah, that's not us. Yeah, that's the
Nothing environmental.
Yeah, nothing environmental. That's right.
That's my question. Nothing was getting stirred up. Everything was given a clean bill of health before they started.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
That's good.
Yep. Yeah, that area's done. So, other questions? Okay. And if you want an electronic version of this, hit me up and I'll send it over to you so you can see it a little bit better. So, you're welcome.